For nearly 45 years, my dad would mark a Valentine's Day, which also happens to be my mom's birthday, with chocolate and flowers. A large dozen roses or giant box of chocolates for my mom, and single rose or smaller chocolates for my 3 sisters and me. Aww. But when my own husband gifted me with chocolates and flowers on our first married Valentine's Day, I was seriously disappointed and underwhelmed. Is it the thought that counts or the feelings that lead up to it? And that is what we are going to tackle today. We are just coming off of Valentine's Day, and there's a lot of pressure put on that day. So what if it ends up pretty anti-climactic? Oy. Can you do a redo when you didn't get what you wanted? My guest is intimacy coach Cheryl Bowen. Hi, Cheryl.
Well, hello.
So can you tell me, what is an intimacy coach and why did you get into this line of work?
I actually was given the name an intimacy coach by one of my dear friends that I used to work with. I worked with her. She's a professional matchmaker. Oh. And I worked with her for a while, Renee Stylberg.
Wow.
And she had said, I'm going to label you as an intimacy coach. She actually gave me that title, and I have just wrapped my whole self around it.
You've leaned into it. You've been knighted.
Absolutely, I have, and I love it. Yes, I got into this business. My business is Pure Romance by Cheryl, and I do those girl parties. Mm-hmm. But the thing that is so wonderful about what I do is that I do so much more than that. It's not really just about the girl parties. It's really more about the intimacy coaching that takes place in those one-on-one consultations, which is actually where the meat of the business is. And it's all about listening to what's going on with those beautiful people who are behind you and sitting next to you, and really needing and wanting and listening for some answers for the kinds of questions that you were just posing at the beginning about, oh man, but whenever I got that from my husband, I was underwhelmed.
Right.
And dealing with those kinds of feelings and what comes from those feelings, which is, a result of complete intimacy in every way.
So it sounds to me like the way to get to connection is by starting with connection, right? Because I won't know that my thought was not that weird if I know other women are thinking the same thoughts.
Oh, absolutely. But in all honesty, if that's your thoughts, that's really all that matters, because it's you who counts in your love story.
Right.
Yeah, you and your partner. So, yeah, absolutely. Okay. And just how I got into the business was, I was shocked after being married 23 years, and my marriage did not last. I will tell you that.
I'm sorry.
It is unfortunate. However, there were a lot of different factors involved, and it's totally fine now. We've got a very great relationship. However, at the time, I needed so much help just because I was trying to navigate a lot of adversity in my marriage. And whenever I had discovered this business, I was angry, to be honest, that there was all this information, all these great, this great women out there who had all of this knowledge to share, and I had never heard 75% of what I heard at one of those presentations. So that's when I decided, this is critical. This is so important. I've got to get out there and do the same thing.
That is so interesting, because I have conversations about mental health awareness, and It sounds similar to this kind of discussion. So here I am. I'm a middle-aged woman. Right? And I'm in relationships for decades. And so women, we don't always know what to expect, right? And then we don't know if we should complain. And we don't know if we're allowed. There's a lot of these uncertainties that come with this, right? So what did you discover when you started to go out and meet other women? Did you find that you were like a fairy godmother to them, bringing knowledge? Or were there people who were like, okay, TMI?
A lot of what I was doing, I'll do a general presentation, but then I'll do, like I said, the one-on-one consults. And whenever I was working with Renee, I did a lot of couples consults as well. And so it just really depends. People know that whenever they're going to interact with me, they're going to, I will respect wherever they are, in that type of a conversation. I'm not going to go someplace with them that they're not comfortable going. But at the same time, you're not going to get as much out of that kind of a consult if you don't let your guard down and really put on those listening ears and open your heart. And that's the same thing that's true about any of our relationships, especially the close ones, is that we've got to be willing to not just listen, but also express our true feelings and emotions and thoughts and all those things that sometimes are a little tricky.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about Valentine's Day, for example, right?
Oh, boy, just coming off of it. Let's see.
We all have our own ideas of what Valentine's Day should look like, right?
Shoulds. Yep.
But what about when it is not what we expected?
And to be honest, I think that happens a lot. And part of it, I mean, we can always, put on that whole social media kind of blame. Because let's face it, everybody's going to post wherever they post, whatever people are into. And you could actually be actually okay about your Valentine's Day, and then you go to social media and you're like, oh, well, I thought mine was good, but I guess it really wasn't. Comparison is it's just a thief.
Oh, yeah.
It's a thief of a really good relationship because it gets us focusing on all the wrong things.
Right.
So that's one of those things. But also just the sheer true disappointment is a lot of times we've got something in our brain. We've got this expectation. Okay, my Valentine's is going to be like this. We're going to do this, and he's going to give me this, or she's going to be this, and all those different expectations that we have. Well, the other person could be completely clueless. And it's not because they don't care. It's not because they don't want to please us. It's not because, any of those particular things that we might think like, oh, what's wrong with them? It's a lot of times because we haven't really communicated it clearly with them.
Back to the communication piece of the puzzle.
Communication piece.
So is it less romantic if I just plan my own Valentine's Day for my spouse and I?
I love that question because the truth is that whole romance kind of thing is a misconception. It's whatever kind of romance you want.
Right, explain that again.
Yes.
Tell me more about this.
It's the truth. It's like, this is your love story. This is not some fairy princess. This is not somebody on social media, some influencer. This is yours.
That's right. This is not some anybody, somebody.
That's
So you're
right.
saying, and I just want to be clear here, that having a wish list at Diamonds Direct near the town center with any gift that you choose will be approved and pre-approved and lovingly and graciously accepted, that's romantic.
It's totally romantic.
It's totally romantic.
It's what you want. It's what y'all have decided. Sure. Why not? It's yours. Your story.
I love it. I love it. So we set ourselves up for failure if we have unrealistic expectations. So romance, the idea, like you said, it's a concept, okay?
Yes.
So for me, if the romance is about the execution of this perfect dinner,
Okay.
then how we got there shouldn't make a difference.
No. But realize there are some external factors that can be out of our control. That, what if you sit near the kitchen? On your perfect romantic dinner, and all you see is the door slamming shut and hearing people in the kitchen. I mean, that's out of your control unless, you can't stop, I guess, and try to sit somewhere else or something. But then it kind of spoils things. So, there's a lot that, goes into our ideas of a perfect night. And a lot of it, too, I'm going to go right back to that whole intimacy and that connection with your person is how we handle those things. You can look at that swinging door to the kitchen and go, oh, this is just horrible. You can just get that kind of oh my gosh, just rolling the eyes, and then just, the food is fine, but my night's ruined. Or you could reach over and the two of you could just go, oh, well,
right.
Look what happened. You know what? You're looking really hot in that dress tonight. And totally change things around. So much of it is perception.
And perspective.
And perspective. And
right?
communication.
And communication. So we're going back to right.
We are.
Okay, so here's my question. Valentine's Day approaches, and it's on the schedule. It's February 14th. Rain or shine, it's February 14th, which is also my mom's birthday.
I heard
So,
you say that.
yes.
Yeah.
So if it's a monumental milestone birthday, forget Valentine's Day,
True.
right? So if she turns 65, 70, God willing, till 120.
Yes, absolutely.
There's no romance in the cards because that comes first. So.
Right.
February 14th, no. February 13th, we have a disagreement. Okay? I've pre-bought my cards so that I will be prepared.
Oh.
I'm ready.
I love it. Okay.
I did all my stuff.
You did.
Okay? And then February 14th shows up.
Yeah.
How can I get to that place of physical intimacy when emotionally I feel disconnected because I'm still mad at you from 2 days ago.
You may not be able to. I'm just going to be honest.
Okay.
Because so much of what makes us females tick is our emotions. So much of it. So that's going to have to be something that we work within ourselves. Is like, I mean, we bring it to the table and we just say, you know what? I am really not okay right now. I mean, and you can either push through as a couple, which can make you stronger, or you can just say, you know what? I need a little time. And let's just have a redo on whatever day works out best for you. Because again, this has got to be some, taking care of yourself and hopefully helping, your partner helping you take care of you too. But a lot of that's not going to come until you express those kinds of things. And that's not a very romantic type of conversation, but it doesn't matter.
I don't know. It sounds to me like maybe the romance comes from that heart to heart, right?
Yes.
Being vulnerable enough to say, please don't buy me flowers, Ben, because they die and you always buy a mixed bouquet that I don't like and I only like white color flowers and I should buy my own flowers, Ben, and Diamonds Direct still has my wish list.
There you go.
So that would have been fine.
That would have been fine.
Okay. Just for example, I'm asking for a friend.
Just asking for a friend.
But those vulnerabilities are really important. So let's
are.
talk about that. We get past the stage where we can have relationships, right? And we're in a relationship and you're saying that people come to you as a couple.
Yes.
Why do they come to you?
Most of the time it's because of the disconnect. They just cannot seem to either have that kind of a communication with each other. One of them is on one level, one of them's on another, and they just cannot seem to meet eye to eye. They're not really listening to each other. So one of them is usually so wrapped up in their problems, they can't really begin to understand the other person. That's a lot of it.
That's a lot.
It is. Because let's face it, we're our own selves and we are taking care of ourselves and we're thinking about ourselves. And it's really, really hard when we are hurting, we're upset, we got a lot that we're dealing with. Or what about all the work, kids, where we're living, all those different kinds of pressures that are on us just in the society, just in the world that we live in, let alone, oh yeah, you're that person that I've been with that I really care about and I love. And oh yeah, how are you doing? And just trying to, so that's a lot of what I try to do is help us find some common ground where we can just start having some conversations that are not always easy to have, but once you start having them, just like you said, they can be very romantic and very intimacy building.
So several years ago when my husband and I were at a low point in our marriage, we sought counseling. And the first thing she did was give us homework. And she said, I want you to hug for 2 minutes every day.
Good.
You have to kiss on purpose, intentionally. You have to kiss in the morning before you leave for work, and you have to kiss before you go to bed at night.
It's a decision.
And you have to hug for 2 minutes. That's 120 seconds. I was going
to say, that's not an easy, it sounds like, that's 2 minutes.
No.
2 minutes is a pretty long time. Yeah.
Explain to me what physical connection has to do with emotional intimacy. Can you even have emotional intimacy if you avoid physical connection?
No, absolutely not. You're right. I mean, your counselor was smart because, so much of what does connect us is on every single level. And that physical connection is so important. And, okay, granted, people are different. They do have different types of needs and wants and desires and those kinds of things. One person may not really be a touchy-feely kind of person. However, for the other one who, more than likely they are. It's pretty unusual to have.
Opposites attract.
Yeah, it's really unusual to have two that are not.
That's right.
But still, let's face it, we are going to have, or hopefully want that physical intimacy, so it's got to enter into the picture at some point. So for her to, or him, the counselor, to have recommended, that type of an intimacy and physical intimacy, purposeful, it's very smart.
Right, she said we didn't have to talk.
No.
We were too mad to talk to each other.
There you go. But she didn't suggest that y'all go deeply intimate at the beginning.
No.
Which is what I was saying, a little while ago, was that, because it's just too much.
No, it's too much. It was just hugging for 2 minutes. Right. And like you said, that 120 seconds on a timer was a lot longer.
Oh, yeah.
Than we imagined.
Oh, especially if you're not really, like you said, it was a low
Explain
point.
it.
It was a low point in your marriage.
Right. So
I
you're
mean,
doing the thing with your hands, because when you watch the
Yeah.
video, you'll see that Cheryl's doing the thing where you're like the tension, like her fingers are still, because that's how tense it was, right?
Yes.
You're not cuddling. You're not like it leaning into each other. There's still that disjointed. And until you break that disjointed, you really can't go to that next level. Okay. So here we are. We've bypassed the emotional intimacy, and now we've gotten comfortable with the physical intimacy, and now we're ready to spice it up.
Woo!
I know. I'm going to be very honest with you. I'm a TMI person.
Okay.
I know, but I'm going beyond my comfort level because I'm going to be curious.
Okay.
And I'm going to say, right, that at this stage of my life, my husband and I are not on the same page all the time, right? Because he's an all the time, and I'm after carpool, after appointments, I'm touched out.
Yeah.
I'm mommied out. I'm touched out.
Yeah.
I've put people to bed. I've been in 2 beds before I've been to my own every night.
Yes, you have.
By the time I get to my own bed, is there a way for me to get there? Like, is there some tricks, tips, tools that you can help me?
I'm going to just tell you something that it's set a lot of people free to just realize it, because it's basically science. Okay. A male person is created to be turned on by sight, and it happens really fast.
I know, even in my gross sweatshirt.
Oh, gosh, yes. Well, good for you, girl. Good for you, because is his name Ben?
His name is Ben.
So Ben is like, hey, if you can turn on Ben in your gross sweatshirt, more power to you. I mean, that's wonderful. That's a great thing. But on the other hand, you aren't turned out. You're not turned on. So, but here's the reason. It's because the way that the female anatomy is, we need all 5 senses. All of them, not just sight. Because our largest sex organ is our brain. It's our brain.
Just like we've been saying.
It's our brain. So it's candles or something that just smells nice. That alone could just be enough to kind of take that edge off. It might be that. It might be something delicious like cheesecake, or I don't know.
So it's not contrived. All of those things that people, chalk up to, I can just throw that to the side. That's just extra. You're saying that's not really extra.
It's not extra at all. Not in the least. It's all of a woman's 5 senses, and get this, scientific evidence, 20 minutes of foreplay. 20 minutes. Okay, you said you're touched out. You may not want to be touched. You might, however, like a nice massage. Because you're tired. And I mean, there are some ways to do a massage that are not difficult. Because I know some people are like, I don't know how to do that kind of stuff. But there's some, obviously I have some things, but I also have just some ideas. And it's just the idea of walking through just that, those nice touches just for relaxing.
Right.
Right? To just start that kind of a process.
It's funny because foreplay is exhausting. The idea of foreplay, I'm like, that's time out of my day that's sleep time. That's like catch up on work. Which is very sad.
Well,
that's very sad.
It's the real truth, and it's more realistic for us than we'd like to admit, honestly.
But until we admit it, then we don't know that this is something that we have to fix.
Yes.
Right? And the longer we go without fixing it, the more of the disconnect there is.
Exactly.
And the more disconnect, the less communication. And the less communication, the less intimacy. And the less intimacy, the ... And then we end up back in your office and we're saying, hey, Cheryl, help me.
Yes.
So here we are at the beginning, and Cheryl is helping us by saying that foreplay. And that's interesting that you say that. It could just be a massage.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
It didn't even occur to me. And can I tell you something that's even funnier?
Sure.
The day I got married was the day I got rid of every scented candle out of my bedroom. When I was single, I had scented candles. But when I got married, it didn't, it was just extra, right? It was, isn't that funny? I didn't make that, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Tell me some more things. We only have a couple more minutes, but I want to know, 1 or 2 more things.
I will tell you one of my favorite things to do.
Yes.
One of my favorite things to do is to recommend for a couple to have a night where they ask each other questions about intimacy. And it can be any kind of level, but all cards are on the table. Obviously I do have products. So I have this, but it's a simple deck of cards with these questions. You can go hot, hotter, or hottest. And you can always find some, on the internet if you want to.
You will find the link to Cheryl's page
Yes,
on the description of the podcast.
Yeah.
And you can reach out with any questions.
But
One
you just
more.
have a date.
Yeah.
You just have a date.
A date.
Yeah, have whatever you like to drink, whether it's alcohol, non-alcohol, whatever, and you just make that time and you ask each other these questions, and you cannot judge each other. You
That's
cannot
so funny.
judge. Mm-mm.
So, did you see on Netflix that show Firefly Lane?
I saw part of it. Yeah,
Okay,
I
so there
haven't
was
seen
this
the whole
one
thing.
episode with a couple who got married, then got divorced, and they reconnect, and they do, in fact, have this conversation because now that they're single, and he starts to kiss her neck, she says, I never really liked that. Mm-hmm. And it's true because I remember thinking there's so many things that people don't say. I don't like that. They don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. Does that help?
Does that help to...
Who does that help?
I was just going to say, no, it doesn't help. Like, heavens no. Because then they're just going to keep kissing your neck. And you're like, I can't stand
Oh my God,
this.
it's so annoying, right?
Yes.
Don't put your tongue in my ear. I have Q-tips.
No. Right.
Right? Everybody has their own preferences, and I respect that.
And we
But
have to.
That's such a good suggestion. Ask questions so you know the truth, right? We don't assume.
Right.
Okay, one more to-go tip to redo, because some of us have to redo our Valentine's Day, and that's just a fact.
And
that's okay, right?
Well, that's what I was going to suggest is if you need to redo it, just say, hey, let's have a redo.
Right.
And here's some ideas. And just don't hesitate for those hard conversations. That's the biggest thing I can tell you, is let your guards down and approach it with hope and anticipation and caring for the other person.
True story.
Because it really is for both of us, It
I
is.
love that. Thank you so much for being here. And I love your energy. I appreciate that you say this in a non-judgmental way.
Absolutely.
And in a
Has
way
to
that
be.
encourages questions.
Yes. That's what we want.
So the
We wanna
crux,
build it.
the takeaway is communication builds intimacy.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Certainly does.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's time for our honorable mention. Mensch is the Yiddish word for a person of integrity and honor with a sense of what is right and responsible. This week's honorable mensch goes out to everyone who tried their hardest to show love, caring, and connection for Valentine's Day, for Tuesday, for every day. We appreciate you. So go out there and be the change.